Hello, everyone, and welcome back into the early line here on SportsGrid. Davis, Mattek, and Donnie Rightside with you. We are trying to get you on the right side of all of these college basketball games this weekend. We got a huge weekend in college basketball, a ton of notable games. We have got conference tournaments for any of your favorite directional conferences, West Coast, Missouri Valley. You know, we got colleges that sound completely made up. We got Quinnipiac in action this weekend. We've got Colgate, really any kind of college basketball you want. Good college basketball, bad college basketball, mediocre college basketball. It's going on everywhere across the country over the next 3 weeks. And Donnie, we are going to begin with these notable weekend games. We got Kansas versus number 1 Houston here. A win here for the Jayhawks, man, would be pretty big for kind of morale purposes, honestly, for seeding purposes, to maybe get a chance of being a 2 seed there in March Madness. Do you have an early lean on this one?
Yeah, you're taking a look at these teams, matching up down the stretch in the Big 12, which is a conference that I love. You take a look at Houston, who is the number 1 overall team in the country, and quite frankly, here in the Big 12, a 1-game lead over Iowa State. So if you do the math on that, they've already guaranteed themselves at least a conference share of the title here. They can be the outright winners, and they would love to beat Kansas. Why? Because payback here. Kansas beat Houston early in the season up at the Fog. So if we're taking a look at this game coming in, it means a lot here. And also, if you're fighting down the stretch as one of these top line seeds, right? There's 4 number 1 seeds that are going to be given out. You want to be the top overall seed, not just because it's, hey, I can tell my grandkids about that. You want the easiest path technically to try to get to the Final Four. And that's what happens when you have the number 1 overall seed. So this game could go a long way because let's just say Houston runs the table here, wins this basketball game, and picks up a quad 1 victory over Kansas, then goes into Big 12 conference play, runs the title here. That might be enough to outseat here Purdue, regardless of what Purdue does down the stretch overall. But if we're being honest with ourselves, this game's going to come down here to offensive efficiency and who is going to have it. Kansas is tremendous here at not turning the basketball over. What do we love about Houston? They love turning teams over on the defensive end. So if you can limit the damage here, maybe you can have a shot. But here's the interesting part. You take a look at a 14-team conference, and what does Houston do against the 3-point number? You take a look here, 11th in conference play at chasing you off of the 3-point line, which isn't very good. The only problem is, I just told you, Davis, there's only 14 teams in the Big 12. You know who's the least amount shooting 3-point shots here? That's the Kansas Jayhawks here. So you're going to have to do damage against Houston in the paint, and just so happens that Houston is number 1 in conference play at only allowing 46.6% inside of the arc here. Tough scoring on Houston here. Houston is at home. I look for Houston to say, you know what? It's our first year in the Big 12. We are the big dogs on campus now. We're going to win this conference outright. They'll probably be able to handle Kansas in a revenge scenario for me, Davis.
All right. Well, speaking of revenge scenarios, we have this is the number 1 college basketball rivalry, right? North Carolina versus Duke. Number 7 North Carolina against number 9 Duke. Love when both of these 2 teams are in the top 10 and they square off against one another. What are we looking at here on Tobacco Road?
Big stakes as always, right? You're taking a look at, which I do think going back for decades now, the best rivalry in any conference out there. It's North Carolina and it's Duke. It used to be we had a lot more firepower from the coaching position, right? It was Roy Williams, it was Dean Smith, it was always Coach K, and you had that animosity in the building with great teams on both sides here. You still have pretty good teams here. And the reason I don't say great teams, even though they are ranked high, is I just don't put a lot of weight this year, Davis, in the ACC overall. But if we're taking a look, yes, you have an advantage at being home if you're Duke. And also keep in mind, a lot on the line here as well. We just talked about Houston. You want to be the conference champions. You want to wear that ring yourself. If you're North Carolina, go in and beat Duke. That's an outright regular season ACC championship crown. But if you are the Duke Blue Devils, you want a piece of that conference crown. You win that game in Cameron Indoor on Saturday. You claim a piece of the regular season ACC championship. It's going to come down to offense and defense, and that's Duke's offense, number 1 in ACC play in efficiency, versus UNC's defense, which is number 1 in ACC play in inefficiency there. Both of these teams, incredible rebounding teams. On offense, Duke, they hit the glass better than anybody here, Davis, in ACC play. But the problem is UNC's defense, the best rebounding defense in ACC play. Sometimes you just have to take a look and say, even though it's a home game for Duke, and it does mean a lot, obviously, for both of these teams, but if I'm UNC's defense, I'm number one at defending the three-point line and number one defending in the paint here. I think UNC might be just a little bit too much for the Duke Blue Devils in this rivalry game at Cameron this weekend at Durham.
All right, well, I'm going to ride with you on that one. A surprising season here for Kentucky. They are at Rick Barnes' number 4 Tennessee. We actually talked about Tennessee a bunch on the program yesterday. Donnie, probably no team has cost me more money in my, not star-studded college basketball wagering career. I am intrigued by this Kentucky team. I much prefer when Kentucky is kind of the scrappy upstart that is not, considered a title favorite. They are traveling to play at Tennessee. What are you hoping to find out from this matchup?
Yeah, by the way, Dalton Connect, you saw him in the last game when they were playing at South Carolina, waving it around and pointing to his ring finger. Why? Because they won the SEC regular season championship. Now, granted, you're playing for much more at this point, and you have a ranked opponent coming in to your own building in Kentucky. This is a great rivalry. Both of these teams will be fired up, and it's not like in the NFL, right, Davis, where it's like, okay, it's week 18, we've already completed what we needed to do. We're going to rest our guys before we get into the SEC tournament. It's not going to happen. Why? Because you're playing for seed line now. If you are Tennessee and you won a very competitive SEC regular season championship, you know what you want to do? Stack another quad 1 victory up and then head off into the SEC tournament here, possibly win that. And maybe you are finding yourself on that one line as maybe a projected 2 seed, which is where they probably are right now. But Kentucky's been a very good basketball team down the stretch. The one thing we always worried about Coach Cal and his one-and-done type program here is how are these young kids going to mature through the season so by the time they get to March Madness, we're going to be an effective team and basically playing like veterans here. And quite frankly, the freshmen no longer are freshmen here, playing over 30 games. But if you're taking a look at Tennessee, which is number 1 overall in defense in the SEC, they could probably give that Kentucky offense a lot of problems. Here's what it's going to come down to for me, and so many times it's three-point shooting. If you take a look at Kentucky, number 1 in SEC play from behind the three-point line, shooting close to 41% as a team. Tennessee does defend it well, but however, if we're taking a look at the SEC, 13th in SEC play at chasing you off the three-point line, which means if Kentucky can shoot from volume from three-point range and be average, which means 40%, they should be able to hang around with Tennessee. I like Kentucky moving forward. Tennessee's a great team. Give me the Wildcats here on the road here. Let's see what happens.
All right, taking Coach Cal's Wildcats on the road. We are going to move back to the Midwest. We've got number 10 Creighton against Villanova. I guess maybe Villanova. We'll argue about if they're Midwest or not. Maybe that's for next week on the show. Number 10 Creighton at Villanova. The Blue Jays here. What are we hoping to see from them? Is this a big one for them?
Yeah, by the way, maybe qualifying here for the Midwest because technically they're outside the Philadelphia city limits here. So once you get outside of Philadelphia, everybody knows it's the Midwest from here on out until you get to maybe Denver, Colorado. But if you are Villanova, you let a big moment slip away. And I actually lost money on this game as well, which technically I couldn't bet here, but I gave out to the people. So I'm sure they're upset with that one. Seton Hall knocked off Villanova at home just a few days previous. This was one of those situations, Davis, which you're coming down the stretch for Villanova. They were playing good basketball, and it probably was, okay, if you get that victory against Seton Hall on the road, you're probably in the tournament there with an at-large bid. They lost that game. So now they have a chance to make it up against Creighton. It feels like it's hard to weigh the situation because we don't see this much in college basketball. Last game of the season, Wells Fargo Center, which the DuPont Pavilion, where they play out on campus here, this is going to move to the Wells Fargo, which is technically their B home court. It'll be a sellout crowd. They'll be anticipated. They'll be excited here. But this feels like it's a moment that Villanova absolutely must have. But how much do you rely on that when you're trying to take a team in Villanova that has handled their business against the lower level teams in a very competitive Big East market? But that loss to Seton Hall certainly was alarming. If they lose to Creighton, let's just say, Davis, head into Big East play up in the Garden and lose early, I don't think they're going to make it into the tournament. Any one of these bracketology things that you're looking at here, Villanova really needs to win this basketball game. But I don't know if I can just bet things like, Davis, hey, they need to win, so they're going to win. It's a Philadelphia City team technically here, but I think Creighton might be able to give Villanova the goods here. I really do.
All right, there we go. Let's wrap it up here with a non-Big 12 or a non-Midwest Big 12 matchup. We got number 11 Baylor at Texas Tech. I actually watched Baylor play against Kansas last Saturday. I was pretty impressed. I was pretty impressed by the ball that they were able to play. Baylor at Texas Tech. Is this an easy one? Do they need this one? What do you make of this one?
Not an easy one here for Baylor, certainly, because, again, it's hard to win on the Big 12. But one of those teams Baylor I've been keeping an eye on here over the past 2 weeks, Davis. And also, so has the odds book here for the FanDuel Sportsbook. Why? Because they were 40-1 roughly a week ago, now dropping to 30-1. Every victory might drop them lower and lower, because this is a team that you certainly have to watch out for. If you look at their defense, it's not all that efficient here, right? They'll let you shoot the three-point shot, which, again, Texas Tech loves to do. So that could be an advantage if you're looking from an underdog perspective in Texas Tech. But if you are Baylor, number one overall here in conference play in efficiency, and the one thing that you have to love, they get to the free throw line. It's very rare here, Davis. Let's take a look at a team like BYU. Going to rain from three-point land, which means they're not driving to the basket and they're not getting fouled. This is a team that loves to shoot the three-point shot and does it quite well in Baylor, but also number one in conference play, getting to the free throw line. Now, the interesting part is Texas Tech doesn't foul all that much. Second in conference play here at not sending you to the free throw line. But I'm a Baylor Bear type guy. Sick them right now. They won me money last weekend when they handled Kansas over the weekend. I think on this Saturday, they once again also handled Texas Tech here at the United Supermarkets Arena. Give me those Baylor Bears.